Lesson 28. We finished with the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, so we have a look at step 5 of the 8-folded path of yoga. It's a very important step, but at the same time, it is very often neglected or ignored. And the reason for that is that it's not properly understood. The subject is Pratyahara. The 8-folded path of yoga starts with yama. That's the first step. The second step is niyama, then asana, then pranayama, and the 5th step is pratyahara. Pratyahara is detachment. Why is it the 5th step? Because the previous 4 steps lead to a development that requires the skill of pratyahara or detachment. I mentioned it before a couple of times because it's very important. And the more often I mention it, the more you will absorb and integrate this into your understanding of yoga and into daily life also. Yoga practice leads to increased consciousness and increased sensitivity. And most, if not all, yoga practitioners go through a stage in which this increased sensitivity and consciousness causes instability, causes emotional instability, because the increased perception can be very overwhelming. Because you become more sensitive and more conscious, you start becoming aware of many things that you were not aware of before. Now in English, there is an expression that says ignorance is bliss. You understand ignorance is bliss? I do not agree with that expression, but in this case, actually, it is true. If you're not aware of things, they don't touch you, they don't affect you. So, in this case, you can say ignorance is bliss, but the reason why I don't agree with it completely is because life becomes so much fuller and richer. We become so much more mature and capable of manifesting more fully if we develop deeper insight into ourselves and the world around us. But that is not easy, because it means that you have to deal with lots of unpleasant insights and knowledge that otherwise would remain unknown. So yes, ignorance is bliss, but it's not really a good thing if you want to grow to your full potential and become a more complete human being, living a more fulfilling life. So because this is inevitable, it is one of the diseases of the disciple. Yoga acknowledges that the practice of yoga leads to developments that can cause distress, that can cause us to sometimes make mistakes. So we do not view it as negative. It is part of our development, simply. It actually shows that our practice and our study is really working, is really having an effect, is really leading to change and transformation. The problem starts when we undergo these changes while not being aware of what is happening with us. And that is what happens if you ignore Pratyahara. That is what happens if you practice yoga without studying the philosophy. That happens when you practice yoga without guidance from an experienced and initiated teacher. Throughout the years, I have been visited by people who were very motivated to practice yoga, almost fanatic about their practice, practicing every day, some people even practicing twice a day, morning and evening. And they express desperation. Because they practiced on their own, all kinds of changes started to occur. And because they are so motivated, practicing every day, it has a very deep effect on them. The more you practice, the deeper the effect, the bigger the change. So they become hypersensitive and they become hyper-conscious without expecting it. It's because they do not understand, and it is also not the reason why they started practicing yoga. It's kind of a side effect that they didn't expect to happen. So while they are physically in a super good condition, very good shape, they become very unstable, very emotional, crying. Ron, I don't understand. For 2 years I've been practicing every day, twice a day. I'm supposed to feel good, but I don't. Why is this happening to me? Why am I so emotional? Why am I so sad? And I explain to them what I'm explaining to you now. Yoga leads to increased sensitivity and consciousness, and you become aware of many things about yourself, about your past, but also about your environment, about the world around you. You become aware of people suffering, not only in your family, but on a larger scale. People who are suffering from war and famine maybe in Africa or in other parts of Asia, and it starts to affect you, it starts to touch you. While before, because of your lack of sensitivity and consciousness, you looked at it from a distance and it didn't affect you, you now become involved, emotionally involved, because you start to feel the suffering of the people. And that is not a bad thing. It shows that you have developed a heart, that you have developed compassion and empathy. But we need to learn to protect ourselves. We need to do something constructive with this increased sensitivity and consciousness. And that's not possible if we become emotionally unstable. So it's like a doctor in a hospital. And I think this is part of a study, a medical study, except that it is being interpreted in a wrong way. It explains why many doctors seem so cold, as if they don't care, because they learn in school something similar to Pratyahara. Doctors have to deal with people who are suffering, people dying, people with terrible diseases. So you learn in medical school that you need to detach from that you should not allow that to affect you. So that when you go home after your shift, you can have your own life without being affected by your patient's suffering and misery. Yoga does not propose that you become cold and appear to not care. It asks you to do a little bit more effort. And a really good example of Pratyahara in practice is Ajita's advice to me. When I asked him to have a consult with me, to help me, because I was in that situation too. And especially I was affected by things that happened in the past. I was especially affected by my inability to help my two brothers to stop destroying themselves with alcohol and drugs. As a normal person, you can probably deal with that, you can probably handle with that, and you just go on with your life. You focus on your work or you focus on your private life. But for me, it was an emotional affair. I felt guilty because I had saved myself. I had chosen another way of life, away from the drugs and the alcohol and the self-destruction, because I found yoga. For me, it was evident that it is possible. And I found it impossible to accept that they were not capable of doing the same. I tried to help them. I took them away from Amsterdam on vacations to southern France, where there is no drugs, for a month, just to be away from that environment, to clean up. I bought yoga books for them, and it didn't work. Nothing worked. So I met Ajita. I told you this story before. And very soon after I started to speak, he said, wait. Stop talking about your past. Stop talking about your problems. What do you want? He made me put Pratyahara into practice right on the spot. Stop thinking about all these miserable things. What do you want? Focus your energy on that. So I told him, I want to go to Korea. Then he said, what do you need to do for that? So I said, I need to finish my training with you. I need to finish my night school. And I need to save enough money to stay in Korea for at least 2 years without income. So he said, stop thinking about your brothers, about your past, about your misery. Focus only on what you need to do to make it possible for you to go to Korea. And that's exactly what I did. And it was so effective. From that moment on, everything started to move. Finally, I started to accomplish things. Before, I failed at everything that I tried to do because I got distracted. And this is what happens to most yoga practitioners. Because you become more sensitive, you become more conscious, the past catches up with you. And people that you care about, you want to help, but you become frustrated because you find that you can't help them, no matter how hard you try. And because you love them, it's really hard to accept. Pratyahara teaches us that you must detach. It's not your responsibility. You don't need to feel guilty about it. You have your own path in life. They have their path in life. If the time is right, they will change. But maybe they will not. And it should not affect you. It should not make you unhappy. Or it should not make you fail in everything that you try to achieve in your life. So Pratyahara is one of the most important aspects of yoga, actually. Every person who practices yoga should at least know about Pratyahara, because it changes you and it will affect you. And it is not a bad thing, but you need to learn to manage it. We learned in the beginning with the subject of self-study that very naturally you become aware of your past. You will have memories of your childhood, even maybe when you were a baby, that you never had any memory of. These kind of things come back as a result of your increased consciousness. And there are unpleasant memories, there are traumatic experiences that affect you, that determine your life, but that you are not aware of. It's subconscious. When you start practicing yoga, it becomes conscious and it starts to hurt. Now, the problem with this is that people get stuck in the hurt. So they think that it is a bad thing. But we have to think of this in a three-dimensional way, because there is a process going on. Yes, the memory hurts. The trauma becomes conscious, so it hurts even more. But now that you are aware of it, and that is the good part, you can move on with your life. Because before you became aware of it, the trauma affected you, even though you don't remember it. It determines how you behave towards other people in daily life. It is the cause of failure and suffering, and you don't know why. Now you know why. And that is a huge advantage. Yes, it hurts. You have to go through that. It is part of the process. But the problem is that if you do not understand Pratyahara, you will just drown yourself in the misery. You will drown yourself in the hurt. What I was doing before I met Ajita, because it was just happening to me subconsciously. And Ajita said, stop making it your problem. It's not your problem. Focus on what you want. So what you're doing is you take away your energy from the past. You take away your energy from matters that are not, that should not be your concern. And you redirect that energy towards something that is of concern. Something that is important to you. That is Pratyahara in practice. So it's not just a theory. Many yoga teachers, if they talk about Pratyahara at all, most of the times they don't, they will say detachment means detach from social status, detach from your wealth. And that is very superficial. Nobody can do anything in a practical sense with these kind of teachings. What it is really about is about your increased sensitivity and consciousness leading to emotional distress that can destroy you. Especially the yogi finds a huge obstacle here because you become increasingly more conscious and sensitive. And if you don't understand that, it is a big obstacle. While if we understand it and we learn to manage it, it actually becomes a big asset. If you don't understand it, it's a liability. it makes you suffer, it makes you fail. Once you understand it and you learn to manage it, it becomes an asset, the opposite of a liability. So crucial, Pratyahara is crucial. It's so important that we'll not only talk about it today, next week we will have another lecture about going into it in more detail. Page 2, there is this paragraph a little bit below the center of the page. I had actually highlighted that page, and the editor who added the illustrations and improved the text, he said it's not. He took out the highlight because it's just not proper for a text or a textbook. So anyway, I left it like that, but it's a very important paragraph that basically sums up what I'm trying to explain here. If you're being bothered by bad experiences from your past, you also withdraw your attention from those events, people and thoughts. First and foremost, do not blame yourself for anything, as blame is counterproductive and does not lead to anything constructive. Blame and guilt often bring you into a negative spiral of self-destructive behavior. Come back to the present, focus your energy on yourself and to your present and future projects, like studies, work, and current relationships. Start looking forward instead of backward. Remember that energy follows thought. If your mind is in the past, your energy is in the past. If your mind is with negative experiences, you undergo negative emotions, even though no such negativity is taking place in your present situation. The understanding of the principle that there is no good and bad, and that all events in life are designed to bring you where your destiny is, your dharma, will be of great help to detach from your past. That last sentence means that when we are suffering, when we are experiencing bad acts from people, from the environment, the family, colleagues, we have a tendency to be affected by that emotionally because of ego. Ego causes us to identify with the pain, and we drown in that pain. We feel sorry for ourselves. And of course you have every right to do this, but it is very unconstructive. So, yoga not only leads to increased sensitivity and consciousness that causes this problem, but it also gives you the power of contemplation that allows you to see the larger process that is at work. And when you can see that, you see that especially in your meditations, or when you're in a meditative mood, contemplative mood, while riding the subway or washing the dishes for that matter, it allows you to see the whole process at work, and you realize that what you think is negative experiences are actually designed to make you grow, to teach you, to make you stronger, more mature. And this is very important, because once you can see that, you don't suffer anymore. Once you can see that, you realize that what you think is bad is just part of a process to make you grow and develop. So that is a huge step forward, if you can see that. And that is what it means that in yoga there is no good and bad. Everything is just part of a process. We have to stop labeling things good and bad. And we do this especially with bad things. And bad things, because of ego, we identify with, and it causes us to suffer. So when you understand this, you realize also that this suffering is not necessary. You can avoid this suffering. And that is what Pratyahara is about. So this is all about taking control consciously. And I've mentioned this concept many times before because it is essential for every yoga practitioner. When you feel something, try to consciously feel it. When there is a disturbance, when there is an emotion, when there is pain, try to rationalize it as quickly as possible. First it hits you. Most people stay stuck in that hit, and it just hurts. It just causes suffering. But for the yogi, the next step is to quickly say, hey, what is going on here? Why is this happening? What caused it to happen? The moment that you start rationalizing it, it doesn't affect you so strongly anymore, because you are going into a process of constructively processing what is happening so that you can do something with it. And when you realize how this works, you realize that everything that you initially think is bad or negative, it will always turn into something positive. Because you process it, because you learn something from it, because it allows you to change things whenever that is necessary. So very important, when you feel something, rationalize it, determine what causes it, where it comes from, and what you can do to avoid it or make it better. 2 weeks from now, in the final big subject of this course, the philosophy of the kleshas, we will come back to this. It's crucial. Questions? There is a paragraph on unconditional love. We have talked about that before. It's a very difficult subject. Everybody can understand that it makes sense. But unconditional love really means to love while detaching yourself. Not only for your partner good, but also for you good. Because all the problems that occur in relationships are because of detachment. The moment you can detach, there is no ground, there is no reason for all those problems to occur. Very difficult. That's why it requires our special attention. And a big element in this is ego. It is because of ego that we become attached. Also in relationships, we become attached to emotions. And it is because of ego that conflicts occur all the time. I think I told you at some point that when my friends, when I meet my friends and we talk about relationships, they all indicate that they wish that they were alone. You remember? Then I've been alone for 7 years because I needed that after a disastrous relationship. I just needed time to process everything. And during that time, of course, I wish that I would or could be with somebody. So I told my friends, listen, count your blessings, because you are in a relationship and you are announcing to the world that you wish that you were not. But everybody who is alone would wish that they were in your shoes, would wish that they could share their lives with someone. And this is the big dilemma. Because the moment you get into a relationship, time passes, and we end up in the same situation where we wish that we were alone. Why? Because we become attached, because of ego, because we fail to keep distance from each other. So all the conditions then come. I don't want you to do like this, I want you to do like that. Why do you do like this? Why are you late? Why? I expect from you. All these kind of things kill the relationship. And we can't help it. So, there are also many people, when they have a relationship and it ends with lots of misery, they will just never have a relationship anymore, just to avoid the pain. But you know, that is sad too. Because every relationship that fails teaches you so many valuable lessons that the next time your relationship will be much better. Maybe not perfect, but based on the lessons you learned from the previous relationship, your next relationship will benefit enormously. Anyway, questions? Don't be afraid. My mom, after divorce, she started socializing with people, and at some point she had a boyfriend, and that boyfriend said something that made her feel embarrassed. And she vowed never to have a boyfriend anymore. So sad. She never had a boyfriend anymore. I say, stick out your neck, take risk, and enjoy life. And learn. If it goes wrong, you can start again. And you just become more mature, richer, wiser, and a better partner. All right, let's have a short break.